Kia ora te whānau. Yes, most of you will have know this, and many of you will be able to pronounce it significantly better than me. Yes, we are coming to church, but Eastview Baptist is also a family. However, when I think of the idea of a church being a family, it makes a lot of sense, but it also can cause some challenges for people because families are not always the easiest things to get on with. I don't know, I'm sure you all have perfect families. But there are challenges in families. Sometimes families go through really exciting times and we celebrate together with families. Sometimes they are difficult. Like Dewin mentioned, those of you that got the weekly email would have seen that Mick and Helen were at a funeral yesterday where Mick was burying his daughter. So we pray for him and his family, his daughter's partner and their kids as they go through that. Recently, some of you will know, gladly I can't say gladly, but there's challenges. So in my family, I have a brother-in-law who has leukemia at the moment, so he's off to hospital again this week to go through another round of chemo. My brother in Australia also, he's had cancer, so he's been dealing with stuff and other things. My sister took my mother to hospital yesterday to check on her. Luckily, it's whatever it is, nothing as major, but when you're in your 80s, it can get a little bit harder. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge for people. It's a challenge to know how to help and how to pray for and what we should do and have I done the right things and a number of things that are going on, and that is common. And then there are families who are by themselves, individuals by themselves. Like Demon did so well, all these people, a number of you have come this morning, and you may have, like I did, have come with part of my family. Another part of my family's in Sweden at the moment. My brother that I told you about, he lives in Perth. So we have family members in different parts of the world. Then there's the odd, not odd as in odd as in strange. You know what I mean. They're families who come together and get to celebrate worship together as families with maybe 2 generations. So maybe parents and their kids. 3 generations. And in the previous church I was at, 4 generations, where there were 4 generations of the same family got to come together and worship God. I don't know of any situation where it's 5, but maybe that is in different parts. So that can be exciting, but it can also be confusing. It can be confusing for us if we come alone, if we come by ourselves, if we hear people talk about church family and our family has been difficult, if we're going through something, we sometimes struggle with these things. And we can struggle with the idea, if we continually talk about family, if we view it as a biological thing. But if we say kia ora te whānau as the wider family, that Eastview, anybody here can be part of this family, we are not talking, although it may include, but we are not talking about biological parents and kids or grandparents. We're talking about this multi-generational, multilingual, multicultural family of God that we can be part of. And this morning it seems very apt for me to be welcoming you as to this church family. Whether you've been here for decades, years, months, or this is your first time, because we're continuing with our story of Joseph. but with a growing focus on Judah. Judah was one of Joseph's half-brothers. A blended, and as many of you will know, or if you were here last week, a very difficult and challenging family, but one that God used to bless others. Super quick recap. Joseph was sold into slavery. He was his dad's favorite and was not so popular with his brothers. He was given a special coat by his dad, and then went telling everybody that he had this dream where his brothers and even his parents were going to bow down to him. That didn't go down that well. And then his brothers very kindly sold him as a slave. He ends up in prison, and yet God blesses him with insight into dreams, and he finally ends up like the second in charge of Egypt. Around 13 years after he was sold into slavery, we find Joseph now around about 30. That's what some of the scholars have said. Sold into slavery about 17, around about 13 years later. And now he is second in charge, and he helped Egypt going through a situation. There was famine, that he was able to control things, organize things, did this amazing job. It enabled Egypt to thrive in the midst of all this. In particular, the leader, Pharaoh, became more wealthy. So what I'm going to do this morning is we are going to look at nearly all of Genesis 42 and 43. But before you think I'm just going to sit here and read the whole passage, which you can grab, and I would encourage you to grab your Bible and read it once we've finished sometime. I have tried to put it in my own words because nice and simple, and we are going to look at, in particular, just these conversations, these interactions between four people. Four individuals, and unfortunately they're all male, but that's all right. Reuben, Judah, Jacob, and Joseph. Reminder, Reuben's the oldest. Jacob's dad. Then Reuben's the oldest. Judah is the fourth, and Joseph is the 11th son. Okay, so there's those four people. And I had this really, really good idea. At least that's what I thought it was, and then I've tried it and I'm not so sure. I will explain in a minute, but what I want us to do during this time is I want us just to think about these three questions while I go through it, and it will be fairly quick. How did everyone, that's those four people, how did those four guys feel during this story? Or during these interactions that we're having? How did Joseph not give away who he was? We'll explain that one. And how did Judah convince his father when Reuben had failed to? Those are three little simple questions. So my clever idea, at least that's what I thought it was for me to try and be four people. Multiple personalities. And before anyone says you can be the old person easier, I thought, how could I do this? So every time I am sitting, I am going to be Jacob. Okay? Jacob's the older gentleman, so every time I'm going to be sitting, I'm going to be Jacob. Joseph, he can wear a hat. It's nice and easy. Joseph can wear a hat, and then Judah and Reuben, well, I'll just not wear a hat and sort of stand either side, and hopefully you understand who they are. Okay, so if I'm sitting on the chair, I'm Jacob. If I'm wearing a hat, I'm Joseph. And excuse me for wearing a hat. And if I'm standing either side, then I will try and tell you who I am. So it's going to take me to take my paper, so let's start. Look, boys, I've heard that there's plenty of grain in Egypt. How about you go down there and buy some? Because unless we get some food, we will all die. Oh, won't be up and down all the time. Okay, Dad. The 10 of us, we will go and get some. So, setting the scene, the 10 brothers head south and come to Joseph, who they don't recognize. Now, I guess that even if he did look kind of similar, if you had sold your brother into slavery 13 years prior, and he was only a 17-year-old, now he's a 30-year-old, he'd be dressed differently, he's speaking a different language, I can understand that they didn't recognize him. So they come to this man who's now second in charge of Egypt. What are you here for? Where have you come from? Reuben says, well, we come from Canaan, sir. And we were hoping that you would be so kind as to sell us some food so that we can take some back to our family. They're going to starve unless you kindly allow us to buy some. I don't know if I trust you. You must be up to something. Who do you work for? No one, sir. No one, sir. We humbly come to just ask you for the opportunity to buy some food. Please, sir. We are all brothers from the same family, and we really need to get some food. We are honest men. I don't know if that is true, that you are honest men. How can I trust you? Judah turns to Joseph and he says, Sir, you can trust us. We are all brothers. In fact, there are 2 others. Our youngest brother is back in Canaan, and we had one other brother who is no longer with us. Okay. Send one of you to get your youngest brother, and the rest of you stay here. In fact, what I'm going to do is all of you need to think about that. So what Joseph does is he sends all the brothers, the 10 brothers, he sends them and he puts them in prison for 3 days. After that, he got them out, and then he tells them that he's a God-fearing man, and they can go as long as one person stays, and then they come back with their youngest brother. Reuben turns towards the others, and he says to his other brothers, and he says, surely God is punishing us for what we did to Joseph. Why didn't you, accusing his brothers, why didn't you listen to me? It's interesting that's what they jumped to straight away. The brothers decided that they would go back, and so they leave Simeon and return to Canaan. But on the way, they open up their bags now with the food, and on top of their bags, they find the money that they had given to buy the food in their bags. What has God done? They cried. And finally they get back and they come to their father again. They tell Jacob everything that they had done. What have you done? Joseph has gone, Simeon is now gone, and you want to take Benjamin too? Everything is against me. Father, Reuben says, if we don't bring Benjamin back, you can kill my 2 sons. Up and down like a yo-yo. No, never. Benjamin will not go. Your brother is dead, and he is all I have. If anything happened to him, this old man would surely be sent to his grave. No, I am not allowing you to take Benjamin. The famine continues, and eventually Jacob said to the sons, you need to go back to Egypt and get more food. Judah turns around to his father and he says, Father, the man in Egypt was very clear. He said he wouldn't see us unless we brought Benjamin with us. We can't go without Benjamin. We won't go without Benjamin. Jacob is just confused and worried, and he turns around and says, why are you doing this to me? Why are you so cruel? And Judah turns again to his father and says, the man kept asking about our family. He wanted to know if you were alive. He wanted to know if you were alive. He asked if we had any other brothers. We had to answer him. Look, if Benjamin comes with me, we will be able to get more food. If not, we will die, including our little ones. I personally will make sure he is safe, and you can hold me responsible if I don't bring him back to you. I will be held responsible forever if anything goes wrong. Jacob turns and looks at his fourth son, Judah, and looks up at him. I can imagine it, and says, please look after your son, your brother, my son. Bring him back to me safely. Take the best products, chocolate chip bickies, that we have, and give it to this man so that we can get the grain we need. May God be with you as you go to this man. So they head off and they go south again, back down to Egypt with Benjamin. Joseph saw them coming from a long way off, and he saw that Benjamin was with them. He turns to his manager and he says to them, these men that are coming, they will eat with me today. Prepare a meal. The brothers get really confused when they arrive and are taken to Joseph's palace. Why are we going here? They must know about the money. Surely this is not good. Turning to the manager, they said, Sir, we bought food from you before, but it was not until we got part of the way home, most of the way home, we found that the money that we paid was in our bags. We did not steal it from you. We have brought it back here. Please accept this. This is the truth. The manager turned to them and says, relax. He says that their God must be looking after them. They do not need to worry. He gave them food for their donkeys and water to wash their feet. He also told them that Joseph would eat with them. Still confused, I can understand, they'll be still completely confused. They wash their feet, they give the food to the donkeys, they prepare the gifts that they had brought for Joseph. How did everyone feel during this story? How was Joseph able, when he first saw his brothers, not to give it away and say whatever he would say? I'm sure, understandably, he would have been rather upset. And how did Judah, how did Judah convince his father to allow them to take Benjamin when Reuben had tried and failed? Last week we read that Reuben had planned to save Joseph, but Joseph had been sold before he could get to him. Yet Reuben didn't stand up against his brothers. He, like the others, had let his father believe that Joseph had been killed by a wild animal. In this part of the story, he offers his kids as a guarantee that Benjamin would be safe. But Jacob didn't accept it. Jacob is still heartbroken for the loss of Joseph. And if you afterwards read in chapter 42, verse 38, Jacob says these words, "My son will not go down with you. His brother Joseph is dead, and he is all I have left." He is all I have left? He had 10 other sons. Yes, they were not sons to Rachel, but how would that have sounded to the other brothers? He is all I have left. Again, to me, it shows this favoritism he had to Joseph and the heartbreak he still had. If I was Joseph and I had seen the brothers who had sold me into slavery coming to me asking for help, I don't think I might have responded favorably. And the final person is Judah. He is the one who suggested they sell Joseph. He was not the eldest, and yet he succeeded where Reuben had failed. He managed to convince his father that Benjamin should go with them. And the interesting thing is that guarantee. He tells his father to hold him personally responsible. In a way, he was personally responsible for Joseph being sold. Maybe a good thing that he wasn't killed, but he was still responsible. Here he was taking responsibility for Benjamin. All the brothers, all 10 of the brothers, had a part in selling Joseph. And yet Judah now stands in the place of leadership and responsibility, taking that responsibility for his brothers. Big question. So what? So what does all that mean? Do I try and come up with something new for you this morning? Do we just walk away remembering that I tried to tell part of this amazing story using my own words, looking silly as a yo-yo jumping up and down, wearing a hat in church? Or is it something else? What I want for the next 1.5 minutes is I want you to turn to someone. It may have been what I've said, may have been because you know the story well, may have been you've read it, may have been the first time you've heard it. I want you to turn to someone and tell them what anything stood out from that part of the story. You got 90 seconds. Now I spoke, you've got 80. Go. Okay. One of the amazing things that there is that we can hear, we can read verses first time, 100th time, and something stands out to us. We can hear what someone else says, and that stands out to us. So, have I got like 2 or 3 people that are brave enough to just call out something that stood out from that story for them? Yes, yeah. So did people hear that? They were talking about Judah being something about his character, because traditionally you listen to the oldest. And they didn't listen to Reuben, but they listened to Judah. Yep. Somebody else? Yes. Oh, Dob and your father. That's good. Yeah, offering up his children. Yeah. Yep. Anything? One more? Yes. Yeah. So timing had changed. Wow. You know, you can take so many things out from a story that we've heard numerous times. That what it said to me simply, and I mean this with all sincerity, it might be what Scott said, Stephen said, what Mary said on behalf of those around them, or what you've said in your group. That might be the thing that you need to take out from this morning. Maybe what I said, but may not be. It's what God is saying to you. But what stood out to me is often, and this story is an example of it for me, is we can find ourselves like the brothers unworthy and yet welcomed, confused and yet blessed. We deserve to be treated one way, but we have someone far greater than Joseph, someone far greater than Judah, who not only stands in place of us, but welcomes us into his family. The one who did nothing wrong stands for us, has taken the consequence for our actions, and so that we can become part of this family. And we need to respond to Jesus' offer of welcome. So we're going to finish with a few songs, but perhaps today you need to respond to God. Maybe the Holy Spirit's drawing something out of you, drawing you into something. May even be the idea of, have you accepted the opportunity to be part of God's family? Is there something that you need to stand up for, confess? And there's space here, like we've had people talk about. There's space over here, but it doesn't have to be after the service in the corner. It could be when you go home, in your room. It could be right now with the person next door to you. It could be as we sing songs, you just want to sit or you want to grab someone and get them to pray for you. Whatever it is, and you don't need to do it with other people, but it's good to have people around you. There is space here. There is space where you are welcome. There is space when you leave today. And there's always space because God is prompting us and calling us. God says, welcome to become part of this family. Let me finish by praying and then we'll have the worship team come up. Father, thank you so much. So much for the fact that we are able to become part of your family. No matter what we've gone through, no matter what challenges we face, you say, come, you are welcome. We thank you for the story of Joseph, but more importantly, we thank you for your son. We thank you that the brothers were able to be saved through the way you intervened. But we also know, like we have already prayed, that there are people here who are grieving and struggling, and yet you say to them, come, you are welcome. Whether things are going well or whether things are difficult, you say, come, you are welcome. So as we sing and offer a little bit back to you, may we be aware of you saying, and may we accept your welcome. Amen.